Hello and welcome to the AG10 Podcast. To celebrate Agency Guacamole's 10-year anniversary, we're sitting down with 10 industry leaders to talk about business, life, and everything in between. I'm your host, Bilal Kaiser, founder and principal at Agency Guacamole. Today's guest is Erica Metzger, a beauty director, expert, and content creator with almost 2 decades of experience in print and digital media. Erica is the former beauty, fashion, and travel director at Better Homes and Gardens, where I remember pitching her for our clients a long time ago, and now is also a founder. Erica started and is the editor of The Beauty Loop, TBL, a weekly newsletter launched in 2019 that reaches 600 plus beauty journalists, PR executives, and industry insiders. If you work in beauty, you know The Beauty Loop. And apparently that doesn't keep her busy enough because she's also a contributing writer for naturalcurly.com's book, The Curl Revolution, along with outlets like Refinery 29, Cosmopolitan, 17, Shape, and Martha Stewart Living. Hello, Erica. It's so nice to see you.
Hi, it's great to see you. Thanks for having me. That was a lot. Thank you for going through that bio.
Yeah, that's because you do a lot. It's very impressive. And speaking of, my first question for you is, you spent nearly 20 years shaping the beauty conversation as an editor, writer, expert, and obviously with now The Beauty Loop. Tell us about your journey and maybe share a few key moments that led to where you are today.
Well, okay, 20 plus years, you do a massive journey. That's totally accurate. I'll try to just hit the highlights because I could go on and on. But I think the beginning, it was like I always wanted to be a writer. And I spent like my teenage years going to the department stores, the beauty counter with my mom. She was like so into that. That was our bonding activity. So then fast forward through college, when it was time to get an internship, I ended up at W Magazine, which sort of opened my eyes to the beauty editor kind of lane. I had no idea. I loved magazines. I loved the beauty section. I just didn't know the inner workings back then. It's kind of crazy to me, like in retrospect, how naive I was, but that kind of kicked off my career. And I ended up, my first big job was at Ladies Home Journal, like a legacy uh, media publication. And I was there for 10 years, 5 of which I was the beauty director. And it was great because it was like, that's kind of where I learned, a lot about this industry, just writing, going to events, learning a little bit about the sales side, a little bit, being the brand ambassador, doing TV, like all that kind of stuff that's in the beauty editor wheelhouse. I got laid off, which was sort of like, it was kind of a big slap in the face. Like it's part of, I think now it's so norm. It's just part of
Yeah.
working in the industry. But at the time, it really rocked my world because I think I really identified with that title. I freelanced for a couple of years and it was really an interesting time for me because I was both kind of rebuilding like my sense of where I fit in the industry and who I was. I felt like a divorcee sometimes when I would go to events. Because it was like, before you'd be like, I'm Erica Metzger from Ladies Home Journal at the time.
It's a
And then
part
you
of
arrive at an event. Yeah. And at the time, there were not a million freelancers.
Yeah.
So you felt kind of strange. But during that time was a great learning opportunity. I've learned a lot of ways to work with different aspects of the industry beyond just like, contributing to different outlets. There was a lot of ways you can kind of work with brands. So that was a great opportunity. And then I ended up in working for a magazine one more time at Better Homes and Gardens. And that's where I was able to develop the beauty loop and also, really have one of the best jobs I've had in my entire career where I had amazing mentorship. I gained so much confidence. I really love the brand I work for. So it was sort of like, it's been a really amazing journey as I like recite it back to you. I'm kind of in awe that it was me and that's been my path.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I felt what you said about you felt like a divorcee at parties introducing yourself because for so long you associate your name, your experience with maybe a magazine or organization, and all of a sudden without it, what do you do? And to your point, the media industry has changed so much in the last, decade plus, but especially post-COVID. I think you just said there didn't used to be that many freelancers, certainly as many as there are now. Everyone was like on staff at a magazine or a newspaper. And now it's, I don't know if you would agree with this, but it feels like it's flipped, that the majority of editors and journalists are freelancers, and the very few people who are on staff at a publication are probably the minority.
Yeah, correct. I was ahead of the trend. No, I was, I think,
You've
I
always been
mean,
a trendsetter.
no, I just think, yeah, you're absolutely right. And the paradigm is totally switched. And there's been just so much change, but, with that comes lots of opportunities to grow and expand and kind of create new paths for yourself, which I think is sort of, I'm a good example of.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second. Creating a path for yourself. So, having done such amazing work at big titles, building a network, understanding the space of beauty journalism, style journalism, etc. Tell me about the journey from going to that to being a founder yourself with the Beauty Loop.
Yeah. So when I was at Better Homes and Gardens, I had the experience of knowing there was an expiration date tied to this role, which I didn't feel the first time. And I was keenly aware of that. And I wanted a softer landing. I knew I wanted to do the best job possible. At the same time, I was ready for some risks. I think I've always been like a rule follower. So I always did my job and I always put the deadlines first and the brand first. And I didn't put like networking and exploration top of like I didn't prioritize that early in my career, which I knew this was the time where, it was an opportunity for me while I had this position. I had like, easy access to all the people in the industry. I could kind of put something out there that could kind of redefine me also because, working in women's service journalism, you sort of you're put in a box, which is fine. Like it's a wonderful box to be in. But if you want to, kind of have people realize you can do other things, you sort of have to show them. So that's kind of what the newsletter became for me. It was like there was a problem to solve and also an opportunity for me to kind of develop my own brand and a way so that I had something beyond, I had something once I was going to be freelance again because I knew that was inevitable.
Ah. Did you feel there was a gap or some sort of white space opportunity in our industry that sort of inspired you to build on what you just said?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Beauty Loop essentially was I built that for myself. At the time, there was like a lot of disruption happening, I mean, across the industry. But
Sure.
if I get like really micro about it, between the communication of publicist and editor and the information flow was just like, it used to be so straightforward. You would just get all the information, it would come almost right to your door. We were spoiled as editors for a very long time. You get your mailers, you get invited to all the events. And then suddenly that just changed. There were bloggers, there were influencers, content creators. There were a million brands, the agencies, there were like a million agencies. Everything just sort of just expanded in these ways. And I think, on the PR side, I'm sure it was really hard to keep up with those lists
Oh
and
my
the
God.
priorities were all changing, right? And for
Not
me, I
to
was
mention the sensitivities early on between editors and non-editors, whether they're influencer products, they did not want to be in the same room sometimes. But please
Oh,
continue. Yeah.
absolutely. And there was no like liaison, so to speak, who was sort of like kind of making sure we both got that information we needed to do our jobs. And I just felt that I worked at this legacy brand, right? And I was struggling to stay on top of everything. I would like text my editor friends and say, "Oh, what was that event? What did I miss?" And so I just thought, wouldn't it be great to kind of have a resource where you can keep your contact list fresh, where you would know what was launched, what the event was. Events provide a lot of context also, and the experts that
Sure.
are involved. So all these pieces of information that are like so hyper specific to editors doing their jobs well,
Yeah.
and find a way to do it when people were not like so vocal. Like we weren't putting everything on social media at that time. I think beauty used to be a lot more discreet. There was a lot more behind the curtain. And it was sort of at the beginning. And I remember like when I had this idea, I workshopped it to every one of my publicist friends who worked at one of the advertising brands because I was like, this could impact advertising for my brand. I'm not even going to bring it to my, to see if I can do it unless I got the okay. Like I got approval in ways before I brought it to my boss to be like, hey, I want to do this thing. And, at the same time, I have to point out too, like the editor jobs were changing. Like people were on staff, but they were doing really cool things. They were becoming multi-platform, starting podcasts,
Yep.
becoming
Yep.
content creators. So it was sort of like if you wanted to stay at pace with the industry, you kind of had to evolve your role for yourself. And if
Yeah.
your brand didn't allow it for you, you sort of had to figure it out for yourself. So for me, like the newsletter space was not saturated at the time whatsoever. And to me, it was like a nice opportunity. And that's sort of where I kind of burrowed in and started exploring and evolving. And every day, like honestly, the newsletter keeps evolving because I find these like little gaps where we can kind of explore things and make our jobs better and easier, reduce friction. And that's sort of where the beauty loop is always sort of like headed. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's sort of my
Love
concern.
that. Yeah. I mean, so smart, so strategic. You had like a crystal ball somewhere in your closet, and you were like, "This is where it's going," or intuitively, at least that's it. That's what it feels like. You mentioned as you were speaking the evolution of the media landscape, but also the roles of editors. You've had a front row seat to TikTok creators, beauty influencers, taking the world by storm, and in effect, our industry, the professional industry that we work in, by storm as well. What's your observation on that? And maybe what you've seen that's worked well or positive changes? You said that beauty used to be a lot more discreet, but now everything is out there. All of us are experts in every skincare and beauty trend that you can imagine. Skincare ingredients like niacinamide are at the top of everyone's at the tip of everyone's tongue. So I'd be curious to know what you feel has been a positive shift with the emerging creator world, if you will. But also, do you feel have we lost anything versus let's say 10, 20 years ago when you started?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, look, I think what's amazing is there are a lot of like niche expertise, lots of voices and areas where beauty can be explored and topics can like really be investigated in a way that conventional journalism just didn't have space for, right? So within that, I love when it's like a true expert giving good information. And I really appreciate that. And I appreciate when, the fun of it too, like you can really educate somebody in a way through a video and also develop a relationship in a way that you cannot do just through like a magazine. So
Yeah.
I love that. But, the way I came up was we had fact checking, reporting was pretty rigorous. There was time. There was a little bit of time to develop stories and to kind of just make sure everything was accurate. And we had a responsibility to our audiences. And I think that's the part that I kind of see as a problem with everything. I kind of feel like the audiences now have so much in front of them
Yeah.
that we've lost the plot in some ways, and it's made it more complex for them. But there are people who are doing it well, and they're doing it. They figure out how to like adapt to the new mediums and do the storytelling through there, and who are doing it well. And some of them are correcting misconceptions and helping and kind of like trying to reverse the bad information. So there's
Sure.
good and bad with it, of course.
Of course. Fair flag. Um, yeah, and especially on social, like the wrong information can go so far and wide so quickly that for those people who might know better, you're like, no, that's not what you should be doing or talking about. But unfortunately, it's part of the situation that we have to deal with. Okay, I have a business question for you. So obviously, having been on the editorial side for so long, and you as a tastemaker, as an editor, get to decide what you want to focus on or what you want to talk about. And on the PR side, not just in general, but specifically in the last 5 years, let's say, post COVID, there's probably like 10 publicists for every editor, if not more. My editor
Or,
friends are constantly
or
telling me how crazy it is and the volume of emails and pitches y'all get. I'm curious if if someone here listening, they're like they really want to get in front of Erica or people in your space. How do you decide what you pay attention to? How do you decide what's worth learning more about or what deserves your energy?
Again, another great question. And I think this is a very subjective question. One of the things I do via the Beauty Loop is I'll host editor power hours with editors from different publications. And something that I've learned after talking to, a dozen editors, everybody kind of has their own strategy. They've got different audiences. They're creating content. There's overlap in the way that editors are producing content and thinking about trends. But I think when you don't, you have to kind of take into consideration who are you pitching.
Mm,
The issue today is we're hit with mass pitching, which I get it. Like I know everybody's stretched thin. I know it's like the nature of not having enough time and resources. But the problem is that those emails just sort of become like clutter.
mm,
And I just my advice is if you really are trying to get in front of a specific editor, I think take the time to write more of those bespoke pitches,
okay.
where it's clear that you understand the way they cover beauty. And that because editors really respond to that, and they respect that. The challenge is the more those inboxes are cluttered, the more competition those good emails have against like kind of the spammy stuff. So it's very tricky. I mean, I really do empathize as somebody who is sending out 3 emails a week. Like, I get it. It is not easy to remain a valuable, to be like to have value in an editor's inbox. And one other piece of advice I would give is just, if you have to send that mass pitch, don't expect a response. Expect that the editor is most likely going to file it. If it's applicable to what they cover, they're probably not going to respond right away. They might not get back to you for 5 months. They might, be like a month, hopefully.
Yeah.
But make sure you have all the information in there.
And the keywords, right? So if they search for something.
Yeah. So because, make it easy, make it searchable, and don't follow up on it a million times. That's like the kiss of death.
Because it ends up being a turnoff, especially if it's like a 24-hour follow-up. Like, bro, I barely got your email. Take a breath.
No, you have to take a beat.
Yeah.
And, I would also say you have to develop those relationships, because I'm way more likely to open an email from someone I know and someone who I have a connection with.
Yeah. Really good advice. On a similar note, Erica, what if there's a younger person who maybe wants to become an editor or follow an editorial journey similar to the path you followed? What advice might you give to them?
I get asked about freelance life and also developing your own side thing or business, like, pretty frequently. And so my advice is always, it's like, start exploring what the opportunities are, because what I find is it's always changing. It's sort of like you have to figure out what the market needs at the moment. I sound so businessy, don't I?
I love that.
I truly think it's like, from my experience, you might be an expert in a specific genre, like celebrity or like commerce, and you have that. As an editor, it's so amazing because you have such a rich, specific kind of expertise, but you really are going to have to figure out how to translate that for what a brand wants right now. And what brands want or an agency might need is evolving just as fast as how the editors' jobs are evolving. So I think it's always like having conversations, seeing where, what your interest is might align with what somebody might need, and exploring like a project, like, just see where you guys could like work together and go from there. Like, that's usually the consulting thing. And if you want to have your own, podcast or newsletter, or I don't know, what's the new thing that your vlog or what, I don't know. I think you have to just do it. You have to do it. You have to be consistent, like, commit to it. Because I do think the Beauty Loop has really benefited from being a persistent email in the inboxes. Sometimes I take a week or 2 off, and then I get the email like, wait, where's my email? You want to become something that people rely on. And that's a piece of it too, I think. So, which is not easy when you're not getting paid for it. In the beginning, sometimes you have to just try and see what happens, see what sticks, and experiment.
That's actually a really good point. And you use the word consistency and persistence. Those are really strong words, I think, for anyone starting out in any industry. You just have to continue showing up, even if you feel like no one's listening, because when the time comes for people are listening or paying attention to you, that grit, that discipline, I think, goes very far.
Yeah, and take a risk. Let me just add that in there, because I think there's a fear when you're an editor. I don't think we learn about risk as much. The way that a content creator is, just when they come from that side of it and they're developing content and there's no one telling them, no, you can't do that. You have to do it this way. It's like building the muscle of taking risks is actually what you need to do to be able to do other kind of ventures.
Ooh, I love that. Oh, we have to like shout that out. Building the muscle to take a risk. That's so hot. I love that. Erica, one of my intentions when I launched this podcast to celebrate Agency Guacamole's 10-year anniversary was to talk with cool people doing cool things professionally. But there's also, we're human beings, right? You're not AI bot. At least I don't think you are. We're not physically in the same room, so I can't confirm it. But who knows these days, right? So there's a part of like the human journey as well. And I know you're busy in your personal life as well. I'm curious if you could share that along the journey of building your professional life. How do you stay motivated on your personal life? Do you have any thoughts on work-life balance? Give me some like non-work wisdom from Erica.
Well, I'm a mom. I have 2 daughters. One is 15, one is almost 10. And that just forces me to have, and a husband, he's also, and I've been practicing yoga for like 20 plus years. Like, I have hobbies. I have things that I need just to kind of make it possible for me to work. So, and also obligations and responsibilities. And that just kind of forces me to be engaged with him. And I don't want to say limits. It just creates very specific boundaries for me. And it's very clear on it helps me like focus on the things I want to be doing with my time that I have available for working. Those things really give me a lot of clarity. And I think that's part of being a mom and just having a family and that being in that life stage as well.
Yeah, boundaries are so important. 100% true. Where do you find inspiration for whether it's topics for the beauty loop or a new movie you might watch? What do you pay attention to in your personal life to inspire you creatively, energetically?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's really important to be informed what's going on in the big picture, right? Because beauty is like touches everything, right? Doesn't it? It's like every point from health to technology to politics. So, I'm always like, I've got my New York Times, I got my Wall Street Journal, I skim every morning. That's
Okay.
like important to me to stay on top of things. I do consume a lot of Bravo, Netflix. Like I have all the streaming service. So that's sort of the way I like veg out, but I
Yeah,
also feel like it's a way to consume culture too. So I'm
100%.
I'm watching a lot of things. I feel like, going with work, I find the people in this industry more inspiring than anything. So I love to see like how editors work, how they're evolving, how they're like what their processes are,
Yeah.
how they're just adapting in this industry. And I also feel like, going back to my kids are like, in the younger generation, we're all like, what do they care about in beauty? And that's interesting to me as an editor, but also just a mom and trying to kind of like guide them and
Yeah.
help them find their way in this crazy and beautiful and wonderful landscape that we work in. So it's a lot of things.
Yeah. Oh, what a great answer. Dare I ask what you're watching on Bravo these days?
I mean, well, Summer House is done. I totally succumbed to Summer House, and I'm like, I kind of do need a palate cleanse. I have been watching Widow's Bay.
Yeah,
I
so
have
good. Matthew
I
Wares is
I
incredible.
he's so good. That has been blowing my mind. I'm
Yeah.
really loving that one. But right now I'm kind of looking for a new show. I feel like we're in that like lull right now.
Yes,
Like a lot of them
exactly.
ended.
Yeah.
But I probably should pick up a book and be reading more. That's over this summer. Let's do some reading.
Of a
Let's
what? What is that? Is that a TikTok?
use reading or even Audible. I have some Audible credit. Like, let's download a book. Come on.
I love that. So I've loved talking to you, and obviously, I think over the years, I respect the work that you do. I respect you as a person. It's been lovely just knowing who you are and watching and observing the stuff that you're building, Beauty Loop and beyond. Before I ask my last question, is there anything else you want to share with the audience listening to this podcast?
Gosh, I mean, what a wonderful compliment. And I feel like, I guess hearing that is so wonderful. And that's something I think we need more of in our industry. Cause I think, especially as you get further along in your career, you sort of you blink and, 20 years goes by and you kind of don't always stop to celebrate all these like wins, all these like really hard moments that kind of, you can go back and reflect on them. So I just think, I'm taking a cue from you, like with that compliment. Like, I really want to be doing more of that for my friends in this industry because I think we all have to pick each other up and lift each other up at the same
100%.
time
Yeah.
because it's hard. Listen, I think we are hustling, 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 and so that I just want to say thank you and also congratulations to what you're doing. How amazing! 10 years. I mean, huge accomplishment. That's incredible, and I know your job is so incredibly hard. So yeah, that's kind of my reaction to that
I
question.
love that. No, I appreciate that. I received that. Thank you. And to your point about we have to pick each other up 100%, like especially with the very basis of so much of our work is shifting and evolving in real time. On the one hand, it is exciting to see how every new technological innovation could completely change how we do things. But there is a lot of fear, worry, concern for all of us in an individual sense. And I think the power of community, our professional community, whatever, how you want to phrase it, is going to become more important so that we don't, we don't forget about the accomplishments we have and the value we bring and the support that we, can give each other.
Oh, wait, I have one more thing to add to that, if I
Yeah, tell me.
may. It is sort
Please.
of a professional plug, but speaking to that need of kind of that in-person connection, that is
Yeah.
another thing we've been with the beauty loop. That's how it's evolving. I'm getting more into doing events geared for both editors and freelancers, partnering with brands to part educational workshops. Sometimes, like the next one I'm doing is going to be about dissecting some trends that are like, taking a breath and making sure we're all on the same page and understand what's going on. Because, we also need to be trading information with each other and helping each other. That really resonated with me. And I think there's a strong need for in-person social connection.
I 100% agree. And please, I know I'm not an editor, but if there's a non-editor invite available, please let me know.
Noted.
Amazing. So, Erica, the last question is: we ask this of every new employee, and we're who joins Agency Guacamole, and we're obviously going to ask this question because the podcast is so special. But, what's your favorite way to eat guacamole?
I love avocados, so this is a great question. Can I give you my avocado toast recipe? Is that
Oh,
okay?
okay. All
Okay.
right. Intrigued.
Okay,
Go
let me say,
ahead.
because it's a form of guacamole, I would say. But this was what I worked at Late Time Journal. Underneath, there was this like Australian coffee shop, and they had this amazing avocado toast that kind of like revolutionized the way I eat avocados. So basically, it's like a half of an avocado, you smash it up, you add a little feta cheese, you
Okay.
squeeze some lemon, a little
Okay.
acid, you put some salt, you've got some cherry tomatoes, you could chop those up, add that in there. I bake sourdough bread. I always have sourdough bread in my freezer. Toast up a slice of fresh sourdough, and then you put that on top, and maybe slice a hard-boiled egg for your protein, and it is delicious. I love to
Wow.
cook too.
All of that sounds incredible. So I know what I'm having for lunch. But okay, thank you for sharing that delicious recipe. And I think actually, are you talking? I think it's called Citizens or something in New
Is that
York.
what it's called? I haven't been there in so many years that I'm forgetting. Yeah.
It's been a while since I've been there. It was like Citizens of Chelsea or something, but it was an Australian coffee shop of some sort.
Yeah.
That had it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yum. Well, Miss Erica, it has been such a pleasure chatting with you. So great to see you. Thank you for making time for us today. And I'm sure we'll talk soon. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Oh, thank you so much. This was so much
Yeah.
fun. And congrats again.
Yeah. And then this is the end of this episode, Erica Metzger. We'll share our social handles so you know where to find me, Agents Guacamole, and of course, Erica. And we'll go from there. Thanks for listening. Have a good day.
Bye.